Big eye Can I help you? يوين عينك. سمت هرهتي هذا أساس روي. Goodbye. شما فاهم
ها geçelim.
سمعة شعار
Boom.
Hier heru bine.
Not a deal.
Whoa. Whoa.
and bet. Get out of the way.
Hop in.
من النب
have come for you, Magi!
Eye of Horus. What could it have...
Look. Feel that. Damn it.
That's bad.
What's going on? At the
Out of the way! Work with me!
What are you doing? Shield me! We can fail our mission!
I will! Shit! Get down! Shit!
Whoa.
Yeah! You will pay, corpse! Come on, lads, this way! Holy shit! Ah! Ah!
Whoa.
Dressing. Some awesome soup.
Is that Bayek the Magi?
Whoa.
Here, Haru, talk.
Whoa.
Stop that man!
One of them, Hermanju!
Get out of my way! Out of my way! Now, you shits! Move!
Hey, hold on.
Hey!
Cut the bastard off!
Whoa.
भाई precision gun है.
Yeah.
Welcome to Alexandria. Alexander's plan to build his great city began with Though Alexander considered this location ideal for his great city, the Great Wall, excavations led by Mahmud Bey el-Falaki in the 19th century, these formidable ancient walls would resist a number of attacks, including fending off the king of Syria in 169 BCE. It wasn't until 295 CE that they eventually fell to Roman Emperor Diocletian, and this only after 8 months of relentless assault. Alexandria's principal architect, Dinocrates, chose a Hippodamian grid plan. The grid maximized. A central corridor ran from the Mediterranean. Alexandria was most likely built upon an already existing Egyptian village. Upon its completion, the Egyptians reviled the city, refusing to call it by its founder's name. Instead, they called it Raked, the building, as a mark of disdain, which was later Hellenized into Rakotis. Despite this, the name Alexandria would remain. Welcome to Osiris, the first mummy. The oldest mummies recovered date from the... Ideologically, it is Plutarch who gives... The ritual used to bring Osiris... back to life essentially depicts how he became the first mummy. It is why, on the sarcophagi of kings, we often find Iset and Nephthys represented as the magicians who restore life to the deceased.
Welcome to Mummies of the mummification process. The purification. After taking canopic jar towards the middle of the new kingdom, canopic embalmers used natron as a desiccant to dry the flesh and stop the corpses. Once the in addition to the masks were an important part of a mummy's finery. Early wooden cartonnage evolved. Once the mummy was proper, the last stage of this long ritual was the act of touching the mouth with the adze to symbolically allow the breath of life to infuse an inert body. Its performance was reserved for a very specific set of people: priests who wore the mask of the god Anubis, a close relative of the family, or by the heir to the throne.
Welcome to Oil in Ancient Egypt. Castor, sesame, and moringa were the source of the most common oils in ancient Egypt. Ancient Egyptians originally used castor oil in wick lamps, but also for cosmetics, such as facial and hair treatments. Olive trees were present, though scarce, in ancient Egypt's early history, and olives were mostly imported from Syria and Palestine. Their use and cultivation remained uncommon until the mass arrival of Greek settlers during the reign of the Ptolemies, when demand increased sharply. Olive trees were normally found in the region of the Fayum and the lands surrounding Alexandria. Welcome to Wine in Ancient Egypt. When the god Horus lost his a millennia-old tradition, grape cultivation and wine production was regimented in the way
Hey!
documentation shows that only certain craftsfolk were allowed. Egyptians had different kinds of wines, most of which ranged in quality from good to very good. The sweet shadé, to which honey had been added. The soft negem, obtained by drying the grapes in the sun. The ma, reserved for religious ceremonies. And finally there was the peor, the mediocre-rated wine, resulting from the second pressing of grapes and reserved for a less discerning palate.
Welcome to Bread and Beer. While the Mesopotamians invented beer, including beer was the Once baked, bread would be crumbled into the brood. Once ready, the bread and grain mixture was food was prepared. Dough. Ancient Egyptians always had to fight off the omnipresent sand particles that were blown towards them. Despite their best efforts, sand regularly made its way into their food. Additionally, particles from the grain-grinding stone tools and ovens they used also contributed to attrition and prematurely worn teeth. The team tried to portray this through toothache animations and commoners sweeping sand off.
Ahau, Nefer Hosheb.
Welcome to the In pre-Greco-Roman culture, certain professions were open only to women, such as weaving or professional mourning, while others were available to both genders, including homes were generally composed of 3 rooms. Marriages were a social contract rather than a religious construct. Family was vitally important to ancient Egypt. Status and wealth played a large role in town officials and the rich lived in mansions with numerous rooms that were luxuriously decorated. Funeral stone inscriptions focused on the main member of a household. Encircling this person would then be a spouse, parents, and children, possibly even siblings. These stones were so structured because there were no surnames in ancient Egyptian culture. Parents and children were a sort of family tree, which allowed for the identification of the deceased.
Welcome to excavations all over Early pots were... The potter's wheel was utilized during the quartzite particles, which potsherds could be found anywhere and were the most common canvas for writing or drawing, in comparison to the more expensive papyrus sheets. Named after their Greek description, ostraca contained daily life records, letters, or could be drawn upon. Artists drew sketches for temples and tombs, or simply for leisure.
Welcome to Assasin. It was under the watchful eye of Ptah of Memphis, the god of craft and architecture. Art. In ancient Egyptian culture, drawing was used as illustration, such as seen in the Book of the Dead. It was also the first step in the creation of a relief, painting, or statue. Two-dimensional representations were concerned with order and form, and were intended to honor gods and promote the transition of the soul to the afterlife. Stylistically, Egyptians were concerned with the depiction of the human form's inner self. An exception to this were scenes depicting reliefs. Statues were believed to be vessels for the souls of... In ancient Egypt, at the domestic level, most Egyptians were craftspeople to a greater or... Located near the Valley of the Kings, archaeologists believe the site was home to skilled and respected artists. It is considered one of the most important discoveries relating to Egyptian daily life. While much of the focus of Egyptian archaeology was on its kings and queens, it wasn't until the excavation of Deir el-Medina that Egyptologists were given a valuable window into the community life of ancient Egyptian artisans. Welcome to Ancient Egyptian Fashions. Learning what life was like for ancient Egyptians presents... Jewelry was a... Though idealized, the fabric of ancient Egyptian clothing was almost... Cosmetics, including... Egyptians believed kohl had magical powers, wearing it as black eyeliner to protect their eyes from the sun. Women and teenage girls wore their hair long and often. Wigs were very... Prepubescent children generally had their heads shaved. Young girls kept some strands intact, while young boys had a braid worn on the side. Welcome to Leather and Linen in Ancient Egypt. Tanning, a process which dates from prehistoric times, was present although not highly valued in Egypt due to the heat. Leather was reserved mainly for things such valued for its coolness and freshness in hot weather. Linen was the fiber most commonly used for fabrics and textiles. It was produced from flax, which was plentiful in Egypt. Fibers, various shades were achieved using woad, a dye produced from the leaves of Isatis tinctorium. This area's style is strongly influenced by the dye baths and tanneries of modern-day Fes in Morocco. This helped Ubisoft envision what such locations might have been like in ancient Egypt. While this tannery is within the city walls, back then they were often found outside the city boundaries. The tanner's trade was considered off-putting by the Greeks, as all these operations resulted in noxious smells.
Welcome to Ancient Egyptian Medicine. Evidence of advanced medical. Another similar document. Remedies were considered as medicine and carried by doctors and priests. Village doctors often had another job alongside their medical duties and the preparation of medicines. A cure for blindness was made of fermented honey, ochre, and coal. The science behind it was that honey functioned as an antiseptic and antibacterial, while ochre would reduce the swelling. All of their knowledge did not always suffice. Ramses II died of an infection caused by an abscessed tooth.
Welcome to Domesticated Animals of Ancient Egypt. Agriculture and domesticated livestock were introduced 6,000 years ago. Archaeologists have found traces. Pets were deeply cherished in ancient Egypt. Many illustrations of children often include a pet in the depiction. One of ancient Egypt's most iconic animals, the cat, wasn't adopted into their daily life until the Middle Kingdom. Since they were so highly capable of killing snakes and rodents, the earliest reference to dogs dates back to 5000 BCE. They were popular pets as they helped hunters and protected herds. They were closely linked to Anubis, the jackal-headed god. Baboons, monkeys, and even falcons were tamed as pets. Each was mummified and buried with as much ceremony as any family member.
Welcome to Ancient Egyptian Cultivation. The new grain types of the Ptolemaic period required a great deal of water. Later, a sakia, or water wheel. The threshing process separated the grain from its husk. Winnowing was the stage where workers used wooden scoop. Transporting large amounts of grain. Having reached Alexandria's inner harbor, the wheat was unloaded under the supervision of a civil servant in charge. Grain storage facilities were located across all of Egypt. Temples and institutions. The sieves used by ancient Egyptians were unable to filter out sand and stones. Grit often passed into the flour, causing long-term tooth abrasions among all classes of Egyptians.
Welcome to Agriculture and Seasons. While crops were cultivated in different oases around the desert, most of the arable lands were near the Nile. The Ptolemaic era created an agricultural revolution with the introduction of advanced agricultural techniques and new grain types such as rice, durum wheat, and pearl millet. The resulting agricultural mass production greatly increased. Both bread and beer rations were part of a system of barter payment. The state used those goods to pay wages for those who worked in the quarries and at the construction sites. Beer was so important to ancient Egyptians. In order to increase agricultural production, fertile land was divided into plots and large agricultural villages were encouraged. The state and temples were the biggest landowners. The three seasons known as Akhet, Peret, and Shemu corresponded to a specific phase of the agricultural process and the river's natural changes. Akhet was the time of the flood, beginning with the appearance of the star Sirius in July. Heret was the time when lands were cultivated, plowed. The pharaoh's duty was to uphold order against chaos and provide for his people. Priests and local governors also wanted to appear as protectors of the people. However, the story begins with the pharaoh worried for his people. The Nile hasn't flooded in years, and his people are starving. In search of the origins of the flooding, Djoser seeks out Khnum, the protector god of the region and the source of the drought. Djoser gives the god offerings and orders his priests to restore the temple of Khnum. These offerings please the god, and the floods are restored. This story was intended to highlight the importance of the deity in everyone's daily lives, while also demonstrating the crucial role that the priests and the king played in feeding and protecting the people of Egypt. Welcome to Work. Whether workers were employed, while some quarries were close to the Nile, others were located. Whenever possible, during flood season, the Uwadi stone cargo generally weighed 15 tons. River transportation was the most efficient way to ferry stone blocks between the quarry and the construction site. Blocks were transported by flotillas of several types of boats. The most detailed illustration of transport by river is a relief of Queen Hatshepsut's barge with an accompanying flotilla.
Welcome to Building Ancient Egypt. Constructed with bricks made of limestone was common. Ancient Egyptians preferred to use. Workers would draw a large grid directly on the stone surface. The gallery to cut the stone. To maintain the stability of these mining pits over in every quarry, dedicated shrines were established to offer protection for the workers. In particular, Serket, the scorpion goddess, was considered a very powerful deity among quarry workers. Every mine and quarry of ancient Egypt included a scorpion charmer, who was said to use magical powers to ward off the dangerous insects and keep the workers safe. Welcome to Temples and Priests. From its foundation, the city of Memphis, temples were the center of religious Located in the center of Memphis, the Temple of Ptah was the most prominent and imposing building in the city. The long walkway leading toward the temple, known. The dromos opened into a courtyard, with the surrounding portico graced with columns carved to resemble palm trees. Erosion has... The size of the imposing sculpture reflects the importance it had to the temple during the New King. In Egyptian culture, some animals were associated with gods, while others were considered to be living gods. Originally the symbol of fertility, like other living divinities, the mortal incarnation of the Apis bull was prayed to, and when it died, it was given a look. Ancient Egyptians believed the high priest, the god was then washed with. Heredity was the high priest. In the 21st, the educational institution in ancient, only two known centers. Not limited to instruction for young students, the House of Life was a source of reference for many scholars, with rooms dedicated to papyri of many. Ancient Egyptian economy was based on an. There are record. Palaces, warehouses, and granaries were built inside the temple compound to better control the redistribution of goods. The size of the recorded numbers of goods, combined with every other function filled by temples, only serves to confirm their might as economic, religious, and political centers of power within Egypt.
Welcome to Temples. During rituals and festivals, ancient Egyptians believed that Ra, the sun god, believed mankind was unlike the daily rituals that took place. The importance of these festivals is demonstrated by their longevity. The temple hierarchy consisted of Egyptian scribes were custodians of the sacred sciences. Priests and all the officials. The naos was where the god statue stood. The representation of the deity was usually in stone or wood and decorated with gold, silver, and precious stones. Smaller temples had only one naos, while larger complexes, such as the Temple of Karnak, had many chambers to honor gods, such as Amun, Ptah, and Osiris. Each statue was believed to be a receptacle for the presence or essence of the god's Ka, enabling it to take a physical form. Through the statue, the god came to the shrine to eat, drink, and communicate with the pharaoh, or with the priests standing in for the pharaoh. Welcome to Amulets and Rituals. Ancient Egypt. Priest. There was a complete calendar of each of the religious days, both good and bad. Illustrated. Deemed messenger. It was oracles that guided the Greek sailor Batos to the coast of Libya, where he founded a colony known as Cyrene. During Alexander the Great's campaign to conquer Persia, he consulted the oracle at the Temple of Amun within the oasis of Siwa, and was subsequently ordained a divine being.
Welcome to the importance of mummies. The first hieroglyph. The mummification techniques were jealously guarded by embalmers from the Uabet, meaning the least. Egyptian civilization has the Egyptomania. By 1868, mass tourism began in Egypt. Thanks to those dubious parties, the fantasy of a mummy coming back to life, seeking revenge on its defilers, was born. The mummy malediction myth has remained steady in popular culture ever since, particularly in written media and cinema.